So in this video we're going to do a fire up on the brand new Vevor XMZ D2 2 kilowatt heater. Now the D2 is their newer version of this heater. It is a Bluetooth enabled controller, and the Bluetooth app is very basic, but it works. I do wish on the app it had pretty much the same functionality that you do on the controller, just on the app. So if they wanted to maybe add that in there, it would be great. Anyways, let's go ahead and turn this on.
Start heating.
It's in auto. Roughly the temperature, according to my thermometer, is 13 degrees Celsius. And this is set for 19. So as you can hear there, hopefully, the glow plug initialized, and then the fuel pump kicked in, and we seem to have flame, and then it flamed out. But the fuel pump's still running. And what it was doing last night was flaming back up again, making all kinds of poppy and backfiring type sounds. It's actually backfiring. So it was actually backfiring a little bit of smoke through the intake there, through the combustion intake. And it just flamed out again. So now it flamed out, and it seems to have seems to continue pumping. Oh, the fuel pump just shut off now. So that was a total flame out. I don't know if it's because it thinks the temperature is at its set point. Let's kick it into manual mode, because it was in auto. Kicked it into manual mode on full power, full bars there. So we'll see if this thing will fire back up again now. This thing is on, and nothing's happening. I don't know what's going on here.
Stop heating. Start heating.
So I've turned the controller off and back on again, and it is in manual mode. Now maybe this time I'll take the intake off, and you'll be able to see the backfiring going on here. The smoke outside. Oh yes, there is smoke. Oof. Relatively interesting, because the last one, once it would fire up and get hot, like the smoke would be gone really quick. This one seems to be smoking a lot more, and typically smoke is unburned fuel. So something's not running right. Maybe it just needs to go through a really good first pace at full heat, and maybe it will sort itself out, but the other ones never needed to do that. They just fire it up and they work. So another thing I was thinking is maybe I've got the fuel pump placed below the heater is causing an issue. Because on the other ones, like I was saying, the fuel pump is up above the heater, so I don't know if like gravity's kind of screwing something up here or what have you. The good thing is none of the connections are leaking. I'm pleased with that. The smoke has definitely lightened up now that it's getting warm. Probably go ahead and put the muffler back on, the intake muffler, I guess we'll call it. Definitely really helps to quiet this unit down. I'm thinking about cutting off the end of this pipe, because this only sticks in, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch. So if I cut it off somewhere back in here possibly, and I could just have a short stubby exhaust out there instead of having like a stack sort of deal. Everything seems to have normalized now that it's running and hot. Seems to be fine. It doesn't fully have my confidence yet, but we'll see. Confidence is built over time. I have to be able to trust this thing for me to be willing to leave it alone while it's running. Like right now, I have, now that it's running and hot and it's not backfiring, I know that I could go ahead and leave this thing until the fuel tank is empty, essentially. It would run reliably, I'm sure. The other ones seem to. For this thing to turn itself on and off reliably, that part I'm not so sure about. Right. So what I've gone ahead and done is just cut the end of that pipe off. And, should be able to have a nice short muffler on the outside of the door. There you have it, in working order. Well, after running this thing for several minutes now, the temperature has climbed to 16 degrees Celsius. And again, I would like to try to have this thing run as a standalone unit. So we're going to switch her over to automatic mode. My set temperature is 19. I think I'll set that to 22 Celsius. Now a couple things happen when this thing does its shutdown. The fuel pump stops because the fuel is no longer needed, and then the fan ramps down to an idle. So the fan is still blowing right now, and that is to cool off the unit because it gets extremely hot. So like all this plastic is going to start to heat up more so than it was when it was running. But the fan is going to continue to blow air through and cool off the heat exchanger until it reaches roughly 90 degrees Celsius. So even now the fan is ramping up a bit. The other thing that also happens is the glow plug re-engages at the end of the cycle. So if there's any unburned fuel in the combustion chamber, it's going to try to burn that off. One other thing that I kind of don't like is I don't know how to change this from the time setting right now being displayed to I would like to see the ambient temperature that it thinks it is in here. On the app, on the phone, you can actually see that. Okay, so the temperature that the readout is showing, it says 25 degrees Celsius in here. And it's not. It is 16. And I have it set to 22. If I want to increase the temperature, I can do this. I will just press the up button, and it should instantly update on the screen as well. So it's showing 25 in here. I want to set this to 28, let's say. Now it's going to say heating, and it should start to fire up here now.
Start heating.
So I didn't touch anything there, and it just said start heating. Now this thing here says self-check. It's showing right here, this temperature gauge in the middle, that's the internal temperature of 83 degrees Celsius. So hopefully this startup runs a little better than the last, but this is so far, I think, the 4th startup on this unit, and it has backfired every time. So maybe once it runs for a bit, kind of figures itself out, but I don't know. I don't know why it's backfiring. It should be also running the glow plugs here right now as well. And then eventually the fuel pump will kick in and see what happens this time. So I can kind of hear a faint electronic kind of sound. So I think the glow plug is engaged here. Maybe it's a faulty glow plug, because I couldn't hear the glow plugs on the other two. My voltage has dropped down to 11.6. So that glow plug is definitely running. We have ignition. It's backfiring. Ramping up. It had a much better startup this time. It didn't backfire near as much. So I want to go ahead and let this run. And with it being set, what have I got it? I got it set to 28 on here. And this thing thinks that it's 24 in here. And it is still currently, well, it's actually dropped a little bit now. It's 15 degrees Celsius. So I would like to see where it actually cuts out. So what temperature does the shed actually get to with this being set at 28? Well, gotta tell you, while I was sitting around here just kind of waiting for the temperature to rise and seeing what point this thing's going to cut out and what temperature it ends up being, I was fooling around down this neck of the woods, and I took this cap off. But hopefully, by putting this cap on the end, the back way around, it's going to simulate the same thing as it being screwed on there all the way. There's significant airflow difference with this cap installed. So this cap and the grates that are in it are actually causing a restriction of airflow here. And it's probably not as noticeable on camera, but in person, it's significant. There's a significant airflow difference there. And this thing's just running at 2 bars. So I tried to show it with the paper towel here example. So I guess if you still want to keep this on there, and I was thinking about it too, because I'd like to keep it on there, but cutting out some of this grating and then just trying to keep in mind or be mindful, you know, not to stick your fingers in there or whatever, you know, don't screw around and find out. Now I know that this will also stop like large debris from getting in there too, but that's significant enough that I'm considering altering this plate, cover, whatever you want to call it. Now you can kind of leave it loosely on there somewhat, but you still have to screw it on quite a ways to get it to stay on there. And then another option, I guess, would be you could just run a zip tie around this to keep this lid from popping up, because that's essentially what keeps that from popping up on you. Now, in this application, it shouldn't pop up because this unit just stays here and it doesn't move. If it's in a vehicle, then obviously it has the potential to move. Or you could put a hose clamp around it, zip tie, electrical tape. Well, you know, probably wouldn't go with the electrical tape just because this thing does get a little bit warm. But, well, down this end is cold. But, you know, I just thought that was worth mentioning. That's a significant airflow change. I've been sitting here for probably 20 minutes, and the temperature slowly rising. Alrighty, so the heater has now shut off after about an hour and a half of running. It has gone ahead and done its cool down cycle and what have you. There's nothing currently running. The display is flashing the current temperature, which shows 27, and as we just seen on the thermometer on the wall, it is 18 degrees Celsius. I think that I don't want to keep the shed at 18 degrees Celsius. If I'm not in here, it doesn't need to be that warm. Essentially, I just need to keep it above freezing. But I know there's going to be a bit of a lenience, plus or minus a few degrees. So, what I think I'll probably do, because I set this at what? I had it set at 28. So, if I set it at 28 and it's at 18, we'll drop it down 8 degrees. That will put me roughly around 10 degrees Celsius, and I think that that would be where I would like the shed to be at. Now, hopefully, that will stay consistent with, the 28 degrees cutoff turns out to be 18. If I set it to 20, hopefully that'll end up being a cutoff of about 10 degrees. Now, I don't know how cold it will have to get for this thing to kick back on again. If we ran it back up to 28 where I had it, we'll see. So from what I can tell, this flashing state is displaying the current temperature. And then when you adjust it up or down in the auto mode, it will then proceed to tell you what you've got it set to. Now, it's, it thinks that it's 27. I've got it set to 28, so that's why it goes back to 27. I don't know where the temperature sensor is on this thing. And I also don't know if there's a way to program this for temperature variances. So if I could put in a value of, say, that 8 degrees of variance, maybe that would actually get it closer, so you could kind of calibrate this thing to the real world temperature. Let's try to play around with this a little bit. We need to do some trial and error here and figure it out. Alrighty guys, so I finally have gotten this whole thing figured out. I've got the controller figured out. I'm doing a separate video on just the controller itself and the Bluetooth app. And I've got the controller set up to the point where this thing is just running in auto mode. So it's flashing off right now because it's meet its set temperature. I was able to actually adjust the offset of degrees Celsius in here because it was showing that it was like 28 and it was only 19 in here or something. So you can actually calibrate that. That's also in my video of the controller. So I feel a lot more confident in the heater now, to the point where I'm willing to let this thing run in the shed overnight. I'm going to just top up the fuel again to the filler neck, or maybe I'll put a piece of tape on here. I don't feel like picking up that fuel can there, so I'm going to put a piece of tape on here. And the top of the tape is going to be where the fuel level currently is when I leave the shed. And it is 10 o'clock at night. So I'll be putting the piece of tape here now. It just did a heat cycle. It's met its 20 degrees Celsius target. Mine's showing 19, but I guess they're a little ways away from each other. So we're going to put that piece of electrical tape on here. We're going to come back in the morning and see how much fuel it used overnight. I think that it's not going to be a heck of a lot because it takes a while for the shed to cool down. So I'm hoping that with this heater having the functionality of running like a thermostat in your house, it's going to cycle on and cycle off. It's going to use a lot less fuel. That's the hope. So we're going to come back after, maybe I'll take this video again tomorrow night or whenever I come out to the shed, and I'll let you know how many hours it's been, and we'll figure out how much fuel it's used. Today, it's been about 26 hours since the new diesel heater has been installed in the shed. And just before we head on out there and check on the fuel level, I'm going to connect via the app from the house to show just how far it can reach. So we open up the app here, and it's showing I've got it set to 18 in there. It's not currently running because the internal temperature on the heater is 0, and the internal temperature inside of the building is 17 out there. So it's been running on and off throughout last night and throughout the day today and into tonight. So we're going to go on out there and have a look at the fuel level. I'm quite impressed with the range that the Bluetooth functionality actually has on this thing. It's quite impressive. I can even check it from inside the house with this door closed, and sometimes from even further in the house. But most of the time, if I stand near the back door, it will reach out to the shed. And the shed's about 75 feet away, I would say. So it's a fair distance. Now it is 1:15 in the morning, but I unfortunately have a very loud way of opening up the shed. The neighbors are all used to it by now. Let's see, the neighbors are still up anyways. Yeah. It is pleasantly a decent temperature in here. Holy! What is my 17? Okay, well, that is impressive amount of fuel, or lack thereof, that's been used throughout the last 27 and a half hours. And when I went out, I put the piece of tape there, so the fuel level was here, and it's now down, I'm going to say that's probably no more than 3 inches.
For accuracy and quality assurance,
We're going to actually measure it. So we are down just shy of 3 inches actually. 2 3/4 inches or 7 centimeters of fuel. This thing just sips on the fuel. That is impressive. It is -6, feels like -11 degrees Celsius. So it's not super cold. And throughout the day today, I don't believe it was super cold, although I didn't go outside today. I stuck around the house. So that's a very small amount of fuel consumed for 27 and a half hours. That is crazy. So I'm very pleased with this result. Vevor has really taken a step up in the game with having this functionality. So the unit will turn off and on by itself and pretty much run as needed only. So it actually does its cool down and then its fire up, and it goes through the whole motion entirely by itself. It is a standalone system. You can pretty much set it and forget it, and I'm extremely pleased with that. That's what I was hoping out of the other two models, the 5 kilowatt and the 8 kilowatt XMZ D1s, but that's not how they're programmed. This one is a XMZ D2. This is their newer version, and I'm very pleased with how it runs. So it's functioning correctly. The next test is going to be longevity. How long is this diesel heater going to last me? Now I'm hoping the word that I'll be using in the future will be years. I do hope that it will last for 2 to 3 years or so. Obviously the more the better, the longer you can get out of it, the better. But realistically, for a $200 unit, I don't know if it's going to last much more than 2-3 years. Most of the other ones, they don't. Most of the other reviews don't say they last much more than that. But we'll see. Maybe they've upgraded some internal components on this. I don't know that information. But here's to hoping. I do hope so. The parts are readily available too if you need to order parts for them. They're very easy to work on for long-term use. This current setup in the shed is actually going to work really well for me. I'm hoping now, because now I have 2 other heaters. I have the portable 5 kilowatt and I have the 8 kilowatt there, but they don't have this functionality to kind of run as a standalone system that just kind of runs by itself. If I could switch out the wiring harness, the motherboard, and the controller, and just buy those parts separately, hopefully for a low cost, and outfit my 2 older units, they're still brand new, but they're just the older models, and have those run the exact same way this one does. I'm going to be looking into that, and then there will be videos coming on that in the future, because that's exactly what I wanted out of those two, and those options weren't available on those units, I guess. So maybe a little bit of my fault for not doing the research ahead of time. I just kind of assumed with people saying that they set it to a certain degrees and it works. But you know, again, unless I messed up and I didn't have a setting correctly, but I went through the whole menu a bunch of times and I couldn't figure out a way to get it to work. This one does have the automatic setting on there that you can turn that on or off. So maybe there's an option on those that you can turn that functionality on and off as well, and I just haven't found it yet. I'm not sure. But if you know more about these heaters than I do and you know how to get those to run that way, then hey, hit me up in the comments and let me know what I'm doing wrong. Anyways, that's all I came in here to do, was to check on the fuel level and kind of see where we're at in terms of fuel consumption. So I'm very, very pleased with this outcome. This thing is just sipping on the fuel. And I mean, you know, if we're down 2 3/4, I think it was, like just by means of measuring that quickly, this is going to last in this application at this current ambient temperature outside about 4 days. And one could only assume when it is super cold out, if I stay out of here enough, it should I'll double it. I'll say I'll double it. So maybe I'll get 2 days out of it instead of 4. So I'll double the fuel consumption, but we don't know. We'll have to see. I'll come back out here and I'll do a future video when it's minus 30 outside. I'll come in here. I'll put the fuel level right to the bottom of the filler neck and do a 24-hour run at minus 30. Because typically in the dead of winter around here, when it's minus 30, it stays minus 30 all day and all night. Nighttime temperatures drop down colder than minus 30. So I'm excited to go and check this thing out in the wintertime and see how we're doing. And even more so now, I'm just excited that this thing's running by itself. And yeah, so great product. It's finally working. I hope that it lasts me a long time. And I'm very pleased with it. So thanks again for watching this little video, guys. This is the Vevor diesel heater. It is the XMZ D2. This is their newest model. So keep that in mind if you're planning on purchasing one. I would recommend getting the one with the Bluetooth. It's highly worth it. You know, like I showed you there, I can stand at the back door and check on the heater without even having to come out here. So that's very convenient and very user friendly. If you want to see my future update video on this heater, or installing these other heaters in the bus, or outfitting these other heaters with the newer control setup, hit the subscribe button and you'll be notified with a little blue icon on your app, and it'll tell you, hey, Mo's Adventures posted a new video. And if you found this video to be useful, hit the like button for me, guys. Everything like that, the subscription and hitting the like button, it's all free and it helps the channel out. So I would greatly appreciate that. You guys have a good day and we'll catch you on the next video.